the Nintendo Switch 2. One of life's most enduring mysteries, still shrouded in darkness and shadows. We know nothing about it. Is it releasing this year? Is it not? Who really knows except Nintendo themselves? Hey everyone, welcome back into another video. Sorry about that very dramatic opening, but I thought I'd try opening the video with something a little bit different this time around. But today I wanted to talk more about not just Nintendo Switch 2 per se, but specifically the gimmicks behind it. So what are the central gimmicks that the Nintendo Switch 2 will entail? And when I say gimmicks, I'm always saying that with quotes in my head. Whenever I say it, it's always with quotes. The title of this video will most likely have the word gimmick in quotes, because gimmick is really, it's a word we like to associate with Nintendo. When we talk about Sony or Microsoft, we usually say, what is the central hook of their consoles? We don't typically say, what is the gimmick of a PlayStation console, right? But with Nintendo consoles, there's this word that comes with it, and that word is gimmick. What is the central gimmick? We rarely ever say, what is the central hook of a Nintendo console? It's always, what is the gimmick? So I wanted to be a little more clear in this video that when I say gimmick, I don't really want to bring with it any kind of negative connotation, despite the word bringing negative connotation. I don't want to bring any kind of negativity with that word, because at the end of the day, while Nintendo's consoles, especially as of late, may have their gimmick or two, I do think that there's always that central hook that we need to talk about. So that's basically what I want to bring up with this video. Is it a gimmick or is it a central hook? Believe it or not, there is a bit of a difference between the two. So let's just jump right into it. So, just as we begin, I do want to make it clear that I don't believe that Nintendo Switch's central hook is necessarily a gimmick. The central hook is it can dock and it can output onto a TV, so it can be in dock mode, it can be in portable mode. I don't think that in and of itself is a gimmick. It's really not. It's really just a central hook because it works. It is practical, it works, it gets its job done, and everyone finds it very useful. I would say a gimmick more closely resembles that of the Wii Remote and motion controls, stuff like that. Is the Nintendo DS dual screen a gimmick? I would probably say not, because again, it is very functional, it's very useful, and games really took advantage of that. So what is the first thing I think of when it comes to Nintendo Switch 2 and its central hooks, its main gimmicks? Well, I would definitely say the ability to bring this system with you on the go and the ability to dock onto a TV. I would say that the hybrid nature of the device is going to be its central hook, especially considering that most outlets agree that the next Nintendo system is in fact going to be a follow-up to the Switch. It's going to be basically a much, much more powerful Switch, again with a few bells and whistles here and there. This is basically to say that I actually think that the Nintendo Switch 2, or whatever the next Nintendo system will be called, I don't think it's going to have a central gimmick. I think that the main hook of the system will basically be a hybrid device. That is going to be the central hook. It's going to be able to be taken on the go and be put on your TV, just like the regular Switch. But there are always bells and whistles with Nintendo systems, no matter what. Even the Switch had bells and whistles. Remember HD Rumble? That thing that was used a few times and then after that it was forgotten? There's that. And there's a few other things. The Nintendo Switch also has motion controls built into the Joy-Cons. Some games do take advantage of the motion controls. Nintendo hasn't quite gone away from that. So could we potentially see motion controls return in the next system? Absolutely. I do think that there is a high chance that whatever the next system entails, whether it's going to be including more upgraded Joy-Cons or whatever the case, it's going, no matter what the controller is, it's going to have motion controls built into it. And I think that Nintendo's games will take advantage of those. But again, that's not really a central gimmick, it's more of a side thing. It's a side thing that acts more like a complement than anything else. Well, what about if we go back to the dual screen setup? This is one that actually kind of excites me. When I think about the dual screen, I think about the Nintendo DS, obviously. But there are also patents as of late that show that Nintendo has actually been looking into dual screen technology once again. It's possible that this next console will employ some kind of dual screen setup. And unlike the Switch, where the screen is obscured by the dock, maybe this time the Switch 2 will actually have its screen visible during play. So you'll dock the screen, you'll see the game on your TV, but then you'll see a secondary screen as it's playing on the dock. But that would be pretty cool. And I do want to quickly reference a video that Arlo made recently that does actually talk about this. It's something that I've been thinking about before that video came out, but because I think that maybe people might think I'm taking from that video or whatever, that's not the case. It's an idea that I've had for a long time as well. And I think it's a brilliant idea to reintroduce that dual screen setup, but have it so that the screen is visible and not obscured by a dock. And instead, you can use that screen as it's docked on wherever you have it displayed. It can act as a secondary screen that displays additional information. So that's one idea. Do I think the dual screen setup will return in physical form? As in, do I think that the Switch 2 will physically have two screens built into the system? Maybe it's foldable, or maybe the second screen slides out. It's hard to say. Yeah, simply put, I don't think that will be the case. I think that may actually, if anything, increase the price of the system, and I think that Nintendo may want to keep it as cheap as they can given the technology built into it and what it's using. I don't think it's going to be physically a dual screen setup. I think that the dual screen will primarily come from basically your TV and the handheld screen as it's docked. I think that's going to be the quote-unquote dual screen display. So let's get into some other crazy ideas. Although I don't really think that the dual screen idea is necessarily crazy, I do think that this one might be a little far-fetched, and that is, what if Nintendo returns to 3D? What if Nintendo decides to return to the idea of stereoscopic, glasses-free 3D for the handheld screen, or perhaps they include 3D glasses in the package and somehow you can play it on your 3D TV? I don't know. Is that possible? I mean, with Nintendo, I think anything is very, very possible. I do think that if they did it twice, they did it with the Virtual Boy and then they returned with the 3DS, they could absolutely bring back 3D a third time. So is it possible that they could bring back 3D? Yeah. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I don't think that they are going to bring back 3D for the next system, but to be honest, it'll be a cool idea. I think it will be cool for them to kind of go back to that, even though I don't think there's much room for it at this point. I think that the novelty has kind of worn off for a lot of people. The 3DS was great for what it was, but I think Nintendo moved on for a reason. People moved on for a reason. And while I enjoyed 3D personally on my 3DS back in the day, I'm ready to kind of move on from that. Now, going into something that's actually kind of realistic, especially given the time period we find ourselves in and how big it actually is, let's talk about VR, virtual reality. Could Nintendo embrace virtual reality as a main central hook, as a main gimmick for their console? Absolutely. I think especially in this day and age when we see that virtual reality is as popular as ever, it's as widespread as ever, it's only going to get more widespread from here, I think it's very likely that Nintendo could introduce their own form of virtual reality. They've already done that with the Nintendo Labo. If you guys remember, the Nintendo Labo had its own form of VR, where you could literally play certain Nintendo games in their own Nintendo-branded VR, you could say. So basically, you have a Nintendo Labo cardboard kit, and you basically put the Switch in handheld mode into those cardboard VR goggles, and then there you go, you have Nintendo VR. Now, I haven't tried it myself personally, but apparently the 720p screen on the Nintendo Switch made it much less immersive than it could have been. Apparently, that's what I've heard. But theoretically, Nintendo could make this the focus of their next console, and therefore they'll have more reason to make it more immersive if it's their main hook for the system. Do I think that's likely? Do I think that Nintendo is going to make it their main hook? No. Do I think it could be a supplementary thing? Could it be like a complement to the overall experience? Yes, similar to how PlayStation VR is. PlayStation VR is not the central hook of the PS5. It's more of just a complement to it, right? So I think that could be the main idea there. I think that that's more likely than the Nintendo making the next system VR heavy and VR focused. But all in all, guys, I do believe that the Nintendo Switch 2 is probably going to have a central hook, which is basically just the hybrid concept itself. I don't think it's going to have a major gimmick behind it. I don't think that they're going to push motion controls really hard, or they're going to return to 3D, or I don't think that they're going to make VR a central hook or central gimmick for the console. I think that they are going to stick with, if anything, what made the Switch very successful in the first place, and that is the hybrid nature of the device. I think that they are going to tout once again that this is a system you can take with you on the go and dock onto your TV. I think that is going to be the primary selling point for this console. Again, something that I don't personally consider gimmick. I don't want to use that word for this. I would rather say it is a central hook. So that's going to do it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for all the support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Have a good one. Bye-bye.